Okay, I made a post yesterday suggesting that the Lakers' search for a center could end up being in the team that just knocked them out of the playoffs, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I was referring to Rudy Gobert. To my surprise, that post went crazy. It got like 50,000 views. That's the most views I've ever gotten on a post. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because, as I'm sure you can imagine, it got a lot of mixed commenting. Some people thought it was a good idea, some people didn't, some people had other ideas, a lot of good engagement, whatever. But a lot of people who did not agree seem to lack the reasoning behind that. And it's understandable. It was only like a 50-second video. There's only so much you can go over in 50 seconds. So let me contextualize why that trade can work potentially. It's not me saying that it's going to happen. I don't have, the crystal ball. I can't see into the future. It's just me suggesting that it potentially could. And here's why. First and foremost, the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have some tough decisions to make this summer. It's as simple as that. They have a high tax bill or a high salary bill. They are already paying guys a lot of money, and they're already into the second apron of the new CBA, meaning they're paying guys over $200 million a year in just salary. That's just for the roster that they currently have. They have Julius Randle, who can opt out of his contract this summer and request an extension. They have Naz Reid, who is probably going to opt out of his contract and request an extension. They have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who is unrestricted free agent this summer. All three guys who are valuable pieces to their roster. All three guys who I would imagine, with an aging Mike Conley, with an aging Rudy Gobert, they're going to try and sign back. And not to mention, when we're talking about Julius Randle, he is playing the best basketball of his career. He's still in his prime. I would imagine if you trade a guy in Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, you're going to want to keep that guy. You're not just going to want to let him walk in free agency. That would be all for nothing. So with that being said, Julius Randle is going to demand, I think, more than what he got in his last contract, which was about $30 million a year. I would assume he's going to get anywhere from like $35 to $40 million a year and be on the same pay scale as what Rudy Gobert is. Naz Reid, he's making $15 million a year right now. I think as a versatile big who can guard 1 through 5 and who can score the ball from the perimeter, shoot the long ball, he shot like 40% from three this year, is going to demand like $25 million because he is young, he is athletic, he is versatile. They're going to have to pay that man. And if not, there are going to be teams that will pay that man. Nickeil, probably get like 10 million a year. Maybe they don't resign Nickeil. He's the one guy who I could see them not resigning and letting him walk. But still, there's going to be some significant signings that they have to make and money to be spent. With that being said, how do you create some roster flexibility? You trade some of those bigger contracts for expiring contracts. What do the Lakers have in access right now? And the one beneficial thing that they have going for them in regards to their salary roster configuration at the moment. It's that they have expiring contracts going into the summer or going into next year. They have Gabe Vincent, they have Jared Vanderbilt, they have Rui Hachimura. Those three alone make up enough money to trade for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is 32, going on 33. He is a great player. He is a defensive pillar. But to be honest, the Minnesota Timberwolves and where their bread is buttered on the defensive end of the floor is not just his rim protection. It's largely because they have a lot of guys who can move their feet. So I say that to say if one person has to go, it's going to be the guy whose minutes regress in the playoffs, whose stats regress in the playoffs, and whose effectiveness, honestly, regresses in the playoffs, and that is Rudy Gobert. So if someone's going to get shopped this summer for the Minnesota Timberwolves, you best believe it's going to be Rudy Gobert. Now, the Lakers and their expiring contracts could be an incentive because next summer, after not this year coming up, but the summer after that, it creates a lot of flexibility for them where they can go out and they can sign a few other guys to continue building that roster around Ant-Man. Okay. And this summer, I would imagine they could, finagle some stuff with the trade pieces that they acquire to still, get some good pieces there. So for all the people who are saying this take is crazy, you really need to look at the facts because it actually makes a lot of sense for both teams. Now, from the Lakers' perspective, do I think there are other bigs that they can get? Absolutely, there are other bigs that they can get, but you have to ask yourself, are there other bigs who are going to cover up the flaws of our perimeter defense the way Rudy Gobert can? If there's one thing Rudy Gobert can do is he can cover up a lot of holes. He can switch actually a lot better than people get him credit for, and he also is one of the best rim protectors, if not the best rim protector of this generation of basketball over the past 10 years in the NBA. Okay, we got to give credit where credit is due, and he does do that. Now, when you have guys who are slow footed in Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves who can get beat on straight line drives, a guy like Rudy Gobert is pretty helpful, especially in an 82 game season, and especially for a guy who consistently plays 70 plus games a year. Consider that. We got guys like Robin Williams and other centers who I can't think of at the moment who are great. They're athletic, they're rim protectors, but they may only play 40 games out of the season. Consider all the pieces that can go into a trade before just assuming somebody is wrong, because there are a lot of reasons why this trade could work. And again, Rudy Gobert, his offense does regress, and it has regressed since being on Minnesota year after year, right? He's averaging like a point or two less each season. Where would his offense thrive more than anywhere else? Would it be with guys like LeBron, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, all guys who are fantastic playmakers? I think so, right? As a really good picker and a guy who rolls to the rim hard, I would imagine his offense would see an uptick in playing with guys like that. So before you kick this idea in the trash, just consider the facts. Now, again, there are other guys that the Lakers could pursue. There are cheaper guys that the Lakers could pursue. But the reason I think this pick makes a little bit of sense for the Lakers is because, again, I don't know if there are people who cover up the holes that Rudy Gobert covers up for a realistic price, a price that the Lakers could afford, because Rudy Gobert's contract pretty much aligns with those three players that I mentioned earlier. I've seen Lakers fans unrealistically say guys like Bam or Giannis or, all these crazy things. Those are not realistic. Rudy Gobert is within a realistic price range for the Lakers, and I think the incentive for Minnesota to free up some cap space could end up pushing them to trade him at some point. This is not a fact. This is not law. This does not mean it's happening. But this is the reason why I suggested that. It could be a place that the Lakers look for a center if they're looking for a guy to cover up a lot of the holes that they have defensively. Okay, that's it. Again, I think there are a lot of other bigs out there that would be great. I think Miles Turner would be great. Honestly, I see the Pacers re-signing him. Why wouldn't they? They're about to go to the Eastern Conference Finals again. And honestly, I think, they got swept by Boston last year. I think this series is going to be highly competitive with Boston being a little bit hobbled in the way that they're looking against the Knicks. So who knows? For all we know, the Pacers could get lucky yet again, have one more person out, and they could wind up in the finals. If they wind up in the finals with that roster, do you think that they're going to let Miles Turner walk? So consider everything, right? A lot of these centers that we want to get are going to have high price tags on them. Walker Kessler, Nick Claxton, these young bigs that people think are just a shoo-in for the Lakers to get. People want draft capital. People want players who are high-level players for these sorts of guys because they are tough to come by. So consider that before you just think one of these guys is a shoe-in spot for the Lakers. And not to mention, teams don't want to trade with the Lakers. Okay, that's my piece. Just wanted to share, just wanted to add a little bit more context because context tends to go missing in short-form videos. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry for it being so long. Peace.